I don't remember signing up for this job. That's the part that bothers me the most. I know how that sounds, paranoid, dramatic, but I mean it literally. There's no contract I can point to, no job listing, no moment where someone slid paperwork across the table. One Monday morning, about 8 months ago, I just showed up. It wasn't even a military base, not exactly. More like a bland government complex you'd expect to see off a highway. Low concrete walls, tinted glass, a badge scanner that beeped when I pressed my card against it. My card? I had one with my name and picture. I don't remember taking the photo. They bring me into a room that looks like a boardroom, stripped of any personality. Long table, no windows, fluorescent lights that buzz so loudly I can feel the vibration in my teeth. A man in a dark suit and a woman in an Air Force uniform hand me a folder. The folder is always red. Inside are photographs, maps, sometimes transcripts, always vague, like puzzle pieces without edges. They brief me like I already know what the hell they're talking about. You'll be deployed on Tuesday night, or you know the target parameters. I nod like an idiot, because the strange part is, some of it does sound familiar, like déjà vu, or a dream I half remember. Then it cuts off, every time. The moment the briefing ends, my memory fractures. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't remember a second of it, not a blink, not a breath. But Friday morning, I wake up in my apartment. The sheets are twisted, my body aches like I've run for miles, and sometimes I'm bleeding. Small cuts across my ribs, bruises on my arms, once even a fresh burn across my shoulder blade that smelled like chemicals. When I check my phone, I've always got the same text from an unlisted number. Mission successful. Rest until Monday. I don't know what missions I've done. I don't know where I go. All I know is that every week there are more scars on my body and less of me left to recognize in the mirror. The first time I realized something was wrong wasn't the bruises or the burns or even the gaps in memory. It was the knife. It showed up in my kitchen sink on a Friday morning, the steel still wet, like I just washed it. Except I don't own knives like that. This one was heavy, military issue, black handle with little grooves for grip. Not the kind of thing you'd slice vegetables with. I stared at it for a long time. My apartment's the kind of place you notice if something's out of place. I don't have much. One couch, one table, a couple of plates and forks. I keep it simple because I hate clutter. So seeing that knife sitting there, like it had been used and cleaned and placed carefully in my sink, it made my stomach twist. I tried convincing myself it had been mine all along, maybe a gift, maybe something I bought years ago. But when I turned it over in my hands, I noticed something carved into the metal near the base of the blade. Numbers. Not random either. An 8-digit string that looked a lot like a serial code. I shoved it in a drawer, tried to forget about it. But that week, it kept happening. I'd find new things when I woke up on Friday. A half-empty box of ammunition under my bed, even though I don't own a gun. A torn photograph in my coat pocket. 3 men in camouflage, faces scratched out, except one who was staring directly at me. And then, on the 3rd Friday, I woke up with something worse. A name. I don't know how else to describe it. It wasn't written anywhere. no note, no message. It was just there in my head the moment I opened my eyes. Like a word someone had whispered into my ear all night until it carved itself into my skull. Langley. I don't know a Langley. I've never met a Langley. But when I mouthed the name to myself, I felt my chest tighten, like my body remembered something my brain wasn't allowed to. I told myself I'd ignore it. I'd go about my weekend, drink too much, watch TV, pass the hours until Monday when I'd drag myself back to that sterile briefing room. But Sunday night, around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number, just 2 words. Forget Langley? I didn't reply, couldn't. I just sat there in the dark, holding the phone, feeling like someone was standing in the room with me. The worst part? The message deleted itself before I could even screenshot it. And the next morning, when I looked in the mirror, I noticed something new on my body. A scar, thin and surgical, running across my left temple, just under my hairline. I don't remember getting it. But when I pressed my fingers against it, I swear I felt something move beneath the skin. I didn't go to the Monday briefing. That was the first time I'd ever skipped. And the only reason I worked up the nerve was because of the scar. I couldn't stop touching it. Couldn't stop wondering if there was something under my skin. A chip, a tracker, hell, maybe even a bomb. Every time I caught my reflection, I felt like I was looking at someone who wasn't entirely me anymore. So I stayed home. Sat on my couch with the blinds drawn and my phone turned off. I told myself if this was really a job, if I really mattered to them, someone would come knocking. Maybe they'd drag me back. Maybe they'd put a bullet in me. At least then I'd have an answer. But no one came. Monday turned to Tuesday. I didn't black out. No missing days, no phantom aches or bruises, just silence. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I even let myself think I'd beaten it. That whatever trap I'd fallen into, maybe I'd slipped free. Then Wednesday night, I woke up on my floor. Not my bed, the floor. My head was pounding, my mouth dry, my hands were sticky with something dark that had already started to crust. When I stumbled into the bathroom and flicked on the light, I saw blood smeared across my knuckles. Not mine. I looked down at my shirt. There were flecks on that too, like spray. My chest went tight. And when I turned back towards the living room, I saw it. Sitting neatly on my table was another red folder. I don't know how it got there. I'd locked my door. Deadbolt, chain, everything. No sign of forced entry. Just that folder. Like someone had placed it while I was asleep. While I was gone. The label on the tab was different this time. Not a date, not a mission code. Just a single word in block letters. Langley. I didn't want to open it. God, I didn't. But I did. Inside were photographs. All the same man, in different places. Eating at a diner, pumping gas, carrying groceries to his car. Every picture looked recent, like surveillance. The last photo made my stomach drop. It was him, standing outside my apartment building, smiling. And scrawled across the bottom in black ink, "You already killed him." I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw that smile in the photo. The way the man stood outside my building like he belonged there, like he was waiting for me to notice. The words at the bottom, "You already killed him," looped in my head over and over, and I told myself it had to be a trick. Psychological warfare. The kind of mind game spooks play when they want someone unstable. But that didn't explain the blood on my hands. It didn't explain why my knuckles were raw, or why there'd been dirt caked under my nails like I'd clawed through something. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd go to the cops. Just lay it all out. Blackouts, folders, scars, everything. I didn't care if I sounded insane. At least I'd get it on record. At least someone would have to write it down. But when I stepped into the hallway, I froze. He was there, Langley. The man from the photographs. Same jacket, same neatly trimmed beard, same smile. He was standing by the stairwell, like he'd been waiting for me. "Morning," he said, calm, friendly even, like we were neighbors. I couldn't move. My body locked up. He didn't look angry or scared or ghostly like some nightmare come to life. He just looked normal. Except I knew him. My brain lit up the way it does when you smell something from childhood. Memories I didn't own flickered in the back of my skull. Me shaking his hand in a room I didn't recognize. Me sitting across from him at a table with no windows. Both of us in uniforms I couldn't name. I didn't answer him. I just turned, went back into my apartment, and locked the door. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Stop running." Another buzz. "You'll forget again." And then one last text. "Next time, I won't." I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking so bad I thought I might throw up. Because when I glanced back at the peephole, the hallway was empty. Langley was gone. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days. I called in sick to work, ignored the Monday briefing, shut the blinds, and lived off canned soup and stale crackers. Every creak in the hallway made my stomach knot. Every buzz of my phone made my skin crawl. I didn't want to see his name again. By Wednesday, I started to lose it. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. I couldn't stop replaying the moment in the hallway, his voice, his calmness, the way my brain recognized him, even though I'd never met him. It was driving me insane. That night, I caved. I pulled the red folder back out, spread the photographs across my kitchen table. His face stared at me from half a dozen angles. Grainy diner shots, gas station surveillance, candid parking lot stills. And then I noticed something I'd missed before. In every picture, no matter where he was, no matter the time of day, Langley was wearing the same watch. Silver band, dark face, thick rim. A memory jolted through me, quick and sharp, not like daydreaming, like a flashbulb going off in my brain, my hand gripping that same watch, blood on the band. I staggered back from the table, heart pounding. I didn't want to admit what that meant. But then another memory followed. This one longer, blurry around the edges, but enough to make me shake. A room with no windows, metal walls, Langley sitting across from me, both of us strapped to chairs. A man's voice speaking from somewhere behind us, again. And then nothing, just black. I tried to steady myself, told myself it was a false memory, some leftover dream. But when I lifted my shirt to wipe the sweat off my face, I froze. Because strapped tight around my own wrist, something I hadn't noticed, something I swear hadn't been there before, was a watch. The same silver band, the same dark face. Langley's watch. And when I tapped the glass, the display lit up. Coordinates, changing in real time, leading somewhere. I didn't want to follow it. Every instinct told me to smash the watch, toss it in the trash chute, pretend I'd never seen those numbers. But the problem was, the numbers changed when I moved. When I walked across the room, the coordinates shifted slightly, recalibrating like it was tethered to me. Not a tracker, a guide. It wasn't just showing me where something was, it was showing me where I needed to go. That night, I couldn't stop pacing. Every time I glanced at the glowing display, the coordinates were pulling me farther south, out of the city, into the empty parts of the map I didn't know. I barely slept. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was just GPS interference, some trick of the military hardware. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I ignored it, I'd black out again. And whatever I woke up to next time would be worse than a scar. So I drove. The watch led me past the city limits, through a stretch of highway where the billboards fell away and the road got quiet. No gas stations, no houses, just flat land and power lines. After an hour, the coordinates stopped changing. The watch pulsed red, like a heartbeat. I pulled over on the shoulder. There was nothing around me, just an old service road cutting off into the trees. The display blinked. A single word appeared. Walk. I don't know why I listened. Maybe I was too tired to resist. Maybe some part of me needed to know what was happening. I grabbed a flashlight from the trunk and followed the road into the woods. It was quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no insects. Not even the wind through the trees. Just the crunch of my boots on gravel. After about 15 minutes, I saw it. A clearing with a concrete hatch sunk into the ground. Rusted steel wheel on top, like the entrance to a bunker. No markings, no signs. The watch beeped. Open! My hands moved before my brain did. I gripped the wheel and started to turn. And when the hatch finally groaned open, the stench that poured out made my stomach turn. Blood, rot, and something chemical, sharp enough to sting my eyes. I shone the flashlight down and froze. It wasn't a ladder or a staircase, just a drop. And at the bottom, in the glow of the beam, I saw bodies. Dozens. Stacked on top of each other, uniforms, civilian clothes, faces slack and pale. And right at the top of the pile, staring up with dead, glassy eyes, was Langley, his wrist bare, his watch gone. I don't remember making the choice to climb down. 1 second I was gagging at the hatch, light shaking in my hand, whispering to myself, no, no, no. The next, my boots were scraping against concrete, lowering me into that pit of rot. The stench was unbearable up close. Thick, wet air that clung to my throat. My flashlight beam danced across faces I didn't want to see. Eyes clouded, mouths hanging open like they'd been mid-scream when life left them. I don't know how many bodies there were. Dozens at least, maybe more, deeper in the dark. My foot slipped and I landed hard on something soft that crunched underneath. I didn't dare look down to see who. The watch vibrated against my wrist. I lifted it. Find. I should have screamed. I should have thrown the thing against the wall and clawed my way back up. But my legs moved like they belonged to someone else. I stepped over twisted limbs, ducked under collapsed torsos. My light caught flashes of insignias, military patches I didn't recognize, tags torn off uniforms. Whoever these people were, they'd been erased. Then I saw it. At the far end of the pit, half buried under two corpses, was a metal case. Black, reinforced, no bigger than a suitcase. My chest tightened the moment I saw it, because I knew that case, not from here, from somewhere else, from a briefing I wasn't supposed to remember. I dragged it out. The lock snapped open like it had been waiting for me. Inside was a stack of files, thick and bound. The top folder had a name scrawled across it in black marker, Langley. My hand shook as I flipped it open. Inside weren't reports or mission logs, just photographs. Hundreds of them. All of me, sleeping, eating, walking to the store, sitting in my apartment. Every day of my life, cataloged and time-stamped. And on the very last page, a photo from an angle that made my stomach drop. Me standing in the pit, holding the folder, flashlight shining on my face. The timestamp was tomorrow. I don't remember what happened after that. All I know is I woke up Friday morning in my bed. The folder gone, the watch still pulsing on my wrist. And carved into the skin of my forearm, raw and red, were 3 words. You are Langley. I didn't leave my apartment that whole weekend. Couldn't. I kept turning my arm over, staring at those words, carved into my skin like I'd done it myself in my sleep. You are Langley. It didn't make sense. None of it did. Langley was real. I'd seen him. I'd spoken to him in the hallway. He'd smiled at me. He wasn't some hallucination or alter ego. And yet, when I thought about his face, when I pictured his eyes on me, a sick weight settled in my stomach. Because deep down, part of me recognized that look. Like looking in a mirror, Monday came. And I told myself I wasn't going back to that building. No more briefings, no more folders. They couldn't make me. I'd hole up, ride it out, vanish if I had to. But around noon, there was a knock at my door. Not the usual knock. Not neighbors. Not delivery. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. I froze. Didn't answer. The knock came again. And then a voice. Calm. Steady. Familiar. Open up. You're late. I didn't move. The voice spoke again. Closer this time. Almost right at my ear, even though the door was still shut. You've done well. But you're slipping. We can't afford that. My skin went cold. I backed away, heart racing, waiting for the door to burst open. But it never did. Just silence. When I finally worked up the courage to look through the peephole, no one was there. I thought I'd imagined it, until I turned back to the table and saw another red folder sitting there. Like it had materialized while I blinked. No name on the tab this time, just a single sheet inside with one sentence printed in block letters. Report to Site 27. Mission status. Reintegration. Underneath the paper, taped to the folder, was an ID card. My photo. My name. But where the text should have said employee or contractor, it read, Subject Langley. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains, warm and almost cheerful, which felt wrong after the night I'd had. I got up slowly, half expecting to see muddy footprints or broken glass somewhere in the house, but everything was untouched, too untouched, like nothing bad had happened at all. I even checked the locks, running my hand over the bolts to reassure myself. Still tight, still in place. It was only when I walked into the kitchen that I noticed something off. On the counter beside the coffee maker sat a chipped teacup I didn't own, pale green porcelain, stained faintly at the rim, like it had been used often. My stomach dropped. I hadn't put it there, and there was no way it had been in the cabinets yesterday. I picked it up carefully, half expecting it to crumble in my hands, cold, heavy, real. I set it back down, but the moment I did, I realized something else. The smell in the air wasn't my house. It was faint, but I knew it. Old wood, like the inside of a damp cellar. I didn't drink the coffee I made that morning. I sat at the table staring at the teacup until noon, telling myself I'd throw it out. But when I finally tried, I couldn't make myself drop it in the trash. Something about it felt claimed, like it didn't belong to me, but throwing it away would be a mistake. That night, I put the cup outside on the porch, locked the door, and went to bed. Around 2 a.m, I woke to the faint clink of porcelain sliding across wood. I froze. In the morning, the cup was back on the counter. And this time, it was full. Steam curled from inside, carrying the sharp, bitter scent of tea leaves I didn't recognize. The following week's briefing didn't start with handshakes or pleasantries. It began with 2 men in suits, escorting me into a room colder and darker than the others I'd been in before. The walls weren't plain white anymore. They were lined with steel panels, faintly buzzing as if electricity ran through them. Dr. Calder wasn't there this time. Instead, a younger woman with sharp eyes and a military posture slid a folder across the table toward me. "Mission 11, she said. Inside were photos of me. Not recent surveillance shots, not medical scans, action shots, blurry frames of me in some desolate place, crouching behind a rock wall, holding a weapon I didn't recognize, dragging someone through mud. In one frame, my face was half covered in black paint, and my eyes looked feral. I pushed the folder back. "Where did you get these?" The woman didn't answer directly. "You've been outside longer than usual. 48 hours this time." I didn't remember a single second of it. Not the mud, not the weapon, not the wild look in my eyes. "Who's taking these pictures?" I asked, my voice breaking a little. She tilted her head slightly, like she was disappointed I even bothered to ask. "You were briefed," she said flatly. "You carried out the task. You returned. That is all you need to know." But it wasn't all I needed to know, because when I rolled up my sleeve later that night, I found a mark burned into my arm. Not a scar, a brand. It looked like an angular spiral, raised and raw as if pressed into my skin with searing iron. I didn't show them. For the first time since all this began, I decided to keep a secret from them. And that night I dreamed, or maybe remembered, what came before the scar. The fire, the screaming, the voices that weren't human, and me standing in the middle of it all, grinning like it was exactly where I belonged. The basement door was open this time. No lock, no warning. Just a yawning dark hole at the bottom of the narrow stairs. My legs trembled as I stood at the threshold, phone light trembling in my grip. The air was damp and sour, heavy with rot, like something had been growing down there without sunlight for years. Every creak of the steps sounded like a scream being swallowed. Halfway down, I noticed the walls weren't just stone. Someone had carved into them. Faces, dozens, maybe hundreds, with mouths stretched open, teeth chipped, eyes gouged out. And as the light slid across them, they seemed wet, as if the stone had recently bled. At the bottom, the basement wasn't the same one I'd peeked into before. It was deeper, wider. The floor slick with black water that rippled even when I didn't move. Something was alive in it, shifting beneath the surface. And then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate, descending the stairs I had just come down. But when I spun around, the steps were empty. I wasn't alone, though. The water rippled harder. From the far end of the basement, something began to crawl out of the shadows. The house was breathing. Not in a figurative sense, but in a way that made the walls pulse inward and outward, plaster cracking like ribs under strain. Every picture frame rattled on the walls, every floorboard flexed. The air was alive, heavy, charged with something I could feel pressing against my skin like static. From the living room, a door I had never seen before unlatched itself with a slow, deliberate click. The sound was almost polite, like the house was inviting me in. I should have run. Instead, I stepped forward. The door swung open into a stairwell that pitched downward into absolute black. Each step down made the air colder, wetter, like I was descending into lungs, into a throat. By the time I reached the bottom, my phone light caught something that almost made me turn back. The basement wasn't just a basement anymore. It was cavernous, shifting. The concrete peeled away into flesh-colored walls, lined with faces pressed just beneath the surface. Faces I knew. Neighbors, friends, guests who had once stayed here. Their mouths were open, locked in silent screams, but their eyes tracked me, pleading. At the center of the chamber stood the host, or at least what had been the host. His skin was stretched too thin, his jaw unhinged far wider than it should have been. His eyes were nothing but black pits, and from his chest poured cords of shadow, anchoring him to the walls like roots. He didn't speak so much as the house spoke through him. Every wall vibrated with his words. You opened the house. You kept it fed. You are ready. Before I could answer, the floor split. What I thought was stone and wood cracked open into a massive pit. Inside, an endless churning mass of bodies writhed. Every missing person, every guest who had disappeared. Their arms clawed upward, but not for escape. They were reaching for me, beckoning me to join. The shadows lashed out from the host's chest, wrapping around my ankles, dragging me closer to the pit. The faces on the walls screamed silently now, as though begging me not to take the final step. And here's the part I don't understand, the part I can't explain. Because when I looked down into that pit, into the writhing mass, I recognized myself. Not one version, hundreds, thousands, every possible version of me. Each one screaming in unison. The house wasn't just hungry. It wasn't just alive. It was building something. And I was already part of it. The house is louder now than the storm outside. Every wall is breathing. The air is wet, too thick to swallow. My flashlight won't stay lit anymore. It sputters, hisses, then dies. The only light left is coming from underneath the basement door. It's not white. It's not yellow. It's something I don't have a name for. It hums, it pulls, it makes the bones in my teeth ache. I should run. I should have run 10 nights ago, but I can't. I think the house knows that. I think it's been counting on it. Every step closer to the door, my chest burns harder, like my lungs are filling with ash. I put my hand on the knob, and it's beating, like a heart. There's a sound down there. Not one voice, not many. Just one word, spoken over and over again by something that doesn't need air to speak. It's my name. If I go down, I won't come back up. I know that. The thing is, I don't think there was ever a way out. The house doesn't want tenants. It doesn't want victims. It wants stories. It wants endings. And mine is about to be written. So if you hear this, if you find my phone, if you think you can figure out where the house is, don't. Don't come looking. Because by the time you step through the door, the house already knows your name too.